Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of GLP's 10 out of 10. And today we have with us Seth Jackson. Since starting as a very light technician in 1993, Seth has become one of the more prolific production designers in the field of live entertainment and concert touring. In addition to a 23-year relationship with Barry Manilow, which includes his touring shows, Las Vegas residencies, and Broadway shows, Seth also has enjoyed an 18-year relationship with Toby Keith. He's also designed shows for Carrie Underwood, Alice Cooper, Hilary Duff, Jason Mraz, Selena Gomez, Melissa Etheridge, and Don Henley, just to name a few of them. There's many more besides that as well. Under the direction of Stephen Cohen, a previous guest on 10 out of 10, Seth was part of the team that created Star Wars Live in Concert. He's won 2 Parnelli Awards, a Redden Award, the Paul Waterbury Award for Illumination, a Broadway World Los Angeles Regional Award. He also holds a master's degree in education and is the author of Concert Design, The Road, the Craft, the Industry. In 2019, he started Darkroom Creative with his longtime colleague, Nathan Alves. The full-service creative firm for live entertainment has continued to grow during the pandemic and is currently engaged in upcoming projects for John Mayer, the Doobie Brothers, Toby Keith, Barry Manilow's ongoing residency, and several other architectural and installation projects. Welcome, Seth Jackson.
Thank you. I'm tired now.
Okay, so we have our 10 questions for you, Seth.
Yes.
So if we wind back towards the beginning of your career, what was your first show as a designer?
Well, I don't know if it was the very first, but there was a series of shows that I did that were all a little odd in the interim between finishing college and starting at Verilight. It's probably about a 4-month period there. But the weirdest one, there's a very famous restaurant in St. Louis that's in an old mansion that has a long history of murders and family intrigue and death. So it's haunted, is basically the premise. And people love to go there, have these big ornate meals within the house and all the various rooms. And then you can wander around the place and see if you can drum up any ghosts. Well, the owner decided that he would commission a fellow graduate of mine from the theater program. He said, would you write us a 45 minute piece that told all the stories of the murders and the deaths and all the things that went on in this house over the centuries, and perform it in one of the rooms of the home. And it was a very old bank vault that was huge and had no windows. And
right. So
that was one of the first lighting jobs, is to light this basically horror story to these people before they go to dinner.
Fantastic. Obviously, you've done a tremendous amount of shows. You've enjoyed a couple of, at least a couple of extremely long relationships with your clients. I'm sure that every show has been absolutely flawless. You've never had an issue at all. Never. But maybe there might have been.
Or if they were, they weren't my fault.
Right, that's right. But has there been one occasion maybe where things didn't quite go to plan?
The one that comes to mind almost immediately, and anybody on my crew or in the touring staff will remember this vividly. The band won't talk about it to this day. They just get very shut down and quiet. But what happened was, we were touring with Manilow. We were in the UK, which is something of a maddening experience because his fans over there are very, very vocal and rabid and chase the cars down the road. I mean, they're just crazy. And we were in Cardiff. It was Cardiff. And at that particular time, because the sales were so big, we were on 3 sides of the stage. So it went way beyond the 180 line.
Okay.
And so we had a 3-sided kabuki that covered the whole thing. There was no front opening thing. It was just evening with and da-da-da-da. Well, of course, the fear factor for months on that tour was always the kabuki. That was the scary thing. Patrick Dearson says it's ancient Japanese phrase meaning I'm looking for a new job, which is usually what kabuki ends up being. There's always something that could go wrong. And so we got the intro of his show is so specific. There are moments in a recorded music thing that trigger things to happen. The house lights happen in a moment. The volume of the PA increases at a moment. Build, until finally the light show on this kabuki thing, and then boom, it all comes down. And it did all of that.
Okay.
And it drops, and the beams of light are coming up behind Manilow. He's up on the second story of this massive set. He and the local orchestra, the band, his house band, is down lower. Except that night they weren't there. So he's standing there ablaze in all his glory. The smoke's pouring out, the lights, but you can't see that on the lower level. All these rented musicians up top, all ready to go, waiting for their cue. There was no band down below. They had somehow messed up calls backstage, or somebody took a wrong turn, hello Cleveland in the hallway, or something of that ilk occurred. We don't know to this day.
Okay.
But he's up there alone with no way to start the show, and he's on stage.
Right. And there's
it took what seemed about 2 hours, but I believe it was probably a minute or so. That fortunately his fans were so excited, and he just kind of kept working it a little bit, keep them cheering, wave a little bit,
give a little shake.
Right. Hey, how are you? And finally they all got into place and hit the downbeat and kicked off the show, and we got through it without a hitch after that. But
what a moment.
There was a rather unhappy people backstage afterwards.
I could imagine. No wonder they don't talk about it to this day.
No, yeah. See, those of us that were at front of house and are completely blameless, because it's not my problem. I made it to my post on time.
Okay, so what would you say is the best piece of advice that anyone has given you, either professionally or otherwise?
You know, for ages and ages, I used to get that question, and I would always say, just say yes. You know, no matter what to do, if somebody asks you to do something, just say yes, figure it out later. But I swear, after listening to Willie's thing last week, when he said, when there's nothing you can do, do nothing, that really kind of hit me. It's like, oh, that's even better. That's really true. Because there's been so many instances where I've tried to force something, you know, force to get a gig, or force something to go my way, or, you know, a particular thing. And it's always gotten me in trouble. Right. You know, it's been disastrous. Whenever I try to push an issue through or just not let it happen, think I can make this manipulate, and it just goes in a haywire. So I like that kind of like, nope, this one's out of my hands. I'm just going to wait here and let it sort itself out. So I thought that was really good.
There we go. Perfect. That's fantastic advice. What would you say is your proudest achievement?
Well, in the professional world, you hit the nail on the head. It was Star Wars in concert.
Right.
That was a unique, once in a lifetime thing. And it was magic. It was magic. It was my childhood. There was no pop star, you know, moments or anything of that sort. Everyone was just, everybody was a 9-year-old through the entire tour. And we just kept having these moments. And we rehearsed at Elstree in London, outside of London. And that's where they film the movies. And so you're just walking around. Is there a prop left over? Did somebody leave something behind? And all the locals in the soundstage had endless stories. It just brought out the best in people.
Right.
And for 3 years, it was just like, it could not be anything but magic every day.
Yeah. What a fantastic experience. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty magic.
Right. There we go. Star Wars, the concert. What do you normally do in your downtime when you're not out, you know, doing all of these shows, or in Vegas or in Broadway?
I haven't had a ton of downtime, but during this pandemic thing, what's been really interesting, I mean, just as a normal thread, I walk a lot. I like to just get outside and just go somewhere and just walk and listen to a podcast or do whatever. That's kind of my normal Zen therapy and / exercise. But during the pandemic, it's been really cool. As we talked about, you know, Nate and I were starting a company. This gave us a lot of breathing room to really look at, all right, what is the culture of our little corporate world going to be? How are we going to interact with clients? What kind of things are we going to present for them? What will work best to communicate ideas? How, you know, do we do it through this or that method, or is it animations, or is it stills, or do we put it on a website, or do we, all these things? We had the freedom to just kind of go, well, let's just sit and think about this. Let's go explore this.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a blessing in disguise about that, is that we got to really get a base level of how we want our company to look to other people and be to our clients, and how that wants to come together, so that once we start rolling back, there won't be time to have those kind of thoughts.
Right.
You know?
That's so true.
I'm just going to get this done.
Yeah, that's right. The things are going to pick back up at full speed very quickly. So,
yeah.
You've obviously traveled the world. You've seen a lot of places and worked in a lot of venues. Would you have one particular favorite venue?
Yeah. I forgot why we did this. Somewhere down the line with a buddy of mine, we did the math on what would be your home venue, and you try in your head to add up where you'd played the most over the years. And, but for me, this Midwestern kid, the one I've been to the most and love is the O2 in London.
Okay.
I have nothing but magic memories there. I've been through there with probably half a dozen different acts, and some of them multiple times. And every memory of that place is just, there's just a buzz about being there. It's really pretty fantastic.
Fantastic. All right. The O2 in London. We'll take that. As we mentioned, there's been a lot of time for lockdown and being at home at the moment. If you only had one musical artist or one musical album that you could have with you during, a lockdown period, who would that be?
I was thinking about this because I've started kind of going through the big box of old stuff and found this. I'd forgotten about it, but I would really want this. The Bruce Springsteen's Live 75 to 85, the big box set. It was live recordings from all the way back to the club days, the Stone Pony, all the way through to the Born in the USA tour. And it's recorded so well, and there's so much on there that when I was a kid, I would just listen to this going, what would it be like to be in one of those arenas? You could just feel that energy coming off of it.
Right.
So I put that one pretty high up. I just recently rediscovered it, so it's been on my brain. So.
All right, phenomenal. Now, if you were able to wind back in time and go and visit the teenage Seth Jackson and offer one piece of advice, what would that be?
Enjoy the current moment more. I was so completely focused on getting into the business and then getting up the business. I didn't take a lot of time to appreciate where I was at that second. It was always, well, great, this served that purpose. Now I'm off to this. It's like when I got the job at Verilight, it was like, okay, I got a job in Verilight. This is amazing. And I didn't really take in the depth at that moment of like, my gosh, you're hanging out in Regal Row and look at all these pictures on the wall. And this is where all of this has happened. Instead, I was thinking, okay, how fast can I learn this desk so I can learn the next desk? And
right.
I just always was. And now I look back and go, wow, you should have really just taken a breath or two along the way a little bit more.
Just stopped and enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing. You look back and go, you really rushed through a lot of cool things that you could have just sort of just taken in without giving up your stamina and your drive and all of that.
Right. Now, okay, our next question. If you were able to sit down for a cup of coffee with any one person at all, either living or past, who would that be? This one
took a minute, but I came up with, and he's living, I would love to sit down with Tony Smith, the manager of Genesis, and Phil Collins and all of those. He has fascinated me for years. His forward thinking, his ability to kind of dance between the raindrops to keep these enormous careers developing and evolving and keep solo careers working with band careers. And, he's integral to the creation of the Verilight and production elements of what Genesis has done over the years. And he's still there doing it.
Right.
And they're still his clients. He is a fifth Beatle kind of character. And every time I've seen him or talked to people that work with it seems like a very funny chap to sit down with. I think that would be a really interesting conversation.
Just a great way to spend half an hour.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And you're right. I mean, obviously they've been affected by the pandemic as well, but they're planning to go out on
they're still going. Yeah. We've got Phil in a chair, but we're still doing it.
Right. And then we get to our final question. It doesn't take long. Once we finish the interview, your phone's going to ring and it's going to be Team USA calling you up for the Olympics. Now, it could be the Summer Games or it could be the Winter Games. But the question is, what's the sport that they're calling you up for? What have you always fancied having a go at?
Well, I think I'd probably only qualify to be water boy for something, but I'm absolutely not the sports element. I would say the only thing I ever really played reasonably well or for any length of time was tennis. So I guess I'd have to go with that.
Right.
Mainly because, for all my talking about teams and collaborating and stuff, I was a terrible team sports person.
Okay.
I play something by myself.
Right. Much better at the individual events. All right, then. Singles, I guess singles tennis, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Singles tennis it is, Mr. Jackson. There we go.
And I'll still probably be in the water boy position.
Oh, right. Right.
Or the guy that runs out and grabs the ball.
Right. That's right. Tidy up after yourself as you go along. There we go. Fantastic. Seth, this has been brilliant. It's been great to chat with you. It's been great to catch up. Congratulations on everything that you've got going on at the moment.
Thank you.
And and of course, we look forward to meeting up in person at the next available opportunity. Thank you very much again, Seth. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.